On our wedding anniversary, my husband Ethan was out comforting his mistress. Yes, comforting, like he was the one suffering. Like this was a burden he had generously taken on while his friends were already drunk enough to joke about it, nudging him with grins and asking whether he wasn't afraid I'd finally lose control and make a scene. And Ethan just laughed, slow and smug. The kind of laugh that belongs to a man who has never once faced consequences that actually mattered. And if I'm honest, I was only a little sad at first, not devastated, not dramatic, just quietly disappointed. The kind of disappointment women are taught to swallow gracefully and call maturity. The kind you learn to live with until it becomes background noise. Until I went home and noticed two things that snapped me fully awake. A bottle of anti-hair loss shampoo sitting openly in our bathroom like a careless confession he forgot to hide. And Ethan's body still decent. Still attractive enough to strangers, but no longer sharp, no longer impressive, no longer the flawless prize he believed himself to be. And something in my chest shifted. Not pain exactly. More like clarity. Like realizing you've been holding a heavy bag for years and finally setting it down. And I stood there longer than necessary, staring at that bottle, thinking about how men like him start losing things long before they notice hair first. Then restraint, then respect. Until one day they wake up confused about why the world no longer bends for them. And I thought, fine, cheat then. Honestly, this simplifies everything. Weeks earlier I'd booked a restaurant for our anniversary, paid extra, coordinated every detail, chose the location, the lighting, the timing, told them exactly when to replace the flowers, arranged live musicians, soft music, perfect pacing. Because control is comforting when you've been living with uncertainty. And if Ethan understood the language of flowers, he would have known that every single arrangement I chose was a love letter meant for another woman. Not me, because by then I already knew who he was trying to please, but when he didn't show, I waited 10 minutes out of habit, not hope, habit. Because when you've been married long enough, you learn the difference, then calmly told the staff to serve the food anyway, because starving myself for a man who couldn't even show up felt unnecessary and faintly humiliating. So I ate slowly, properly, tasted everything, noticed how the wine paired perfectly with bitterness. Switched the music from romantic to something louder and more triumphant. The kind that makes you feel like you're about to win something important. And as I ate, I realized how strange it was that my appetite had survived something my marriage couldn't. And 2 hours later, back home, while putting on a face mask like it was any other night, like nothing monumental had happened, Ethan finally texted, something came up. I'm not coming. And I replied with a photo of the restaurant and a small crying kitten emoji. Not because I felt small, but because sometimes you've played the role of the loving wife for so long your fingers perform automatically, muscle. Memory of devotion, and he didn't reply, which didn't surprise me at all. But my phone buzzed again almost immediately. Unknown number, no explanation, no greeting, just, wanna know why Ethan ditched you? Come find out. Followed by the address to a private room at his regular bar. And I should have ignored it. I really should have. But curiosity has always been my most expensive flaw. So I went, and the door to the private room wasn't even fully closed, which meant I could see everything and hear everything. Ethan sitting in the center like a king. His usual group of friends orbiting him, loud, careless, unkind. People who mistake familiarity for loyalty, and Chloe's sweet face. Innocent voice. Sitting on his lap like I was already erased from the story. Kissing him while the men laughed, drank, and started placing bets on whether I'd cry, forgive him again, or quietly blame myself like I always had, and Ethan smiling with absolute confidence. Like a man who truly believed he owned my patience, my loyalty, my dignity, and standing there in that hallway, I realized something strange and terrifying. My heart wasn't breaking, it had already stopped trying. And instead of pain, there was this slow, steady calm spreading through me. The kind of calm that comes right before a decision, and from that moment on, I stopped asking why he cheated. Why he lied. Why he thought I'd stay, and started asking how. Because how is a much more useful question. How much evidence existed? How many screenshots could be saved? How many messages he'd never bothered to delete? How many assets were already legally protected? How many weaknesses he'd exposed simply because he thought I was stupid? And it was almost surreal, standing there unseen, listening to them joke about me, realizing the woman they were mocking no longer existed. And when Ethan came home after midnight smelling of alcohol and women's perfume, pulled me out from under the covers and asked whether I was angry he didn't come. And I shook my head gently and told him, "No, you must have had something important." I could see the relief spread across his face. And in that moment I understood something very clearly. Men like Ethan don't fall in love with women, they fall in love with convenience. And I had been extremely convenient. And when he handed me an anniversary gift, a necklace that was beautiful, expensive, and identical to the one I already owned, I thanked him sweetly. Wore it to a gala, smiled for photos, clung to his arm, told him I loved him, and Ethan looked delighted. Not because he loved me, but because nothing had changed for him. And that's when I started planning seriously, quietly, patiently. Because real revenge doesn't announce itself. It files paperwork. It waits for timing. It lets men underestimate you for as long as possible. And over the following months, I watched him unravel without realizing it. Watched arrogance rot into carelessness. Watched secrets pile up. Watched people begin to whisper. Watched deals stall and invitations dry up. Watched the way he blamed everyone except himself, and when the affairs finally came out, when timelines were reconstructed and screenshots resurfaced and partners quietly stepped away and his confidence turned brittle. I didn't celebrate, I observed because observation is safer than gloating. And when I finally asked for a divorce and he refused, I didn't scream, I didn't beg, I negotiated. Because if he wanted to treat our marriage like a game, then fine, I'd treat it like a business and I'd win. And years later, when everything was already settled and he finally asked me the question he should have asked before he destroyed everything, "Did you ever really love me?" I thought about it slowly, carefully, thought about the girl I used to be, the woman I became, the silence that replaced longing, and answered honestly. I liked him when I was young, and then I grew up. And he stood there realizing that what he lost wasn't a wife. It was a future he no longer qualified for, long after it stopped mattering to me.